And you never drank? You're never an alcoholic? Or
No, I
never
drink,
abused
though.
alcohol?
I started, you know, I have a drink every day at 5 o'clock before my dinner. But I was never, no, my grandfather, this is funny, my grandfather, I was about 5. And we lived in my grandmother's house. She had a huge 18-room house, and we had half the rooms, and she had half the rooms. Because my grandfather died, and then we moved in there. But before he died, he was in a wheelchair. He had one leg removed because of diabetes. And my cousin and I, she was the same age as me, we were in the kitchen with him, and he said, listen, I got something for you. And he said, get up, sit on the sink. He said, I have a bag of jelly beans in one hand, and I have a shot glass full of beer in the other. He said, if you drink the beer, you get the jelly beans. And we're 5 years old. Well, my cousin downed the beer, had the jelly beans, and I went, yeah. And I didn't get the jelly beans.
Oh, but you tried.
But I tried, exactly. You know. But it was a wonderful way to grow up. I mean, I had...
How were you the only child back then, a small town?
I think my mother tried. I asked her that too, but she did try, but it just never, as she said to me, it just never happened, Shirley, it just never happened. And I know that, but when I had Sean, my firstborn, oh, my father was ecstatic, you know, to have a boy, a first grandchild. And
how old were you?
I was, let's see, I married Jack when I was about 22, about 24, yeah.
That's young.
Yeah.
Not, you know, good timing back then, but now young.
Yeah, Jack and I were working together a lot. You know, we were in Pittsburgh doing a show, and my parents had just bought a house. They just left my grandma's house, bought a house sort of downtown Pittsburgh, and took my son there, and my father was ecstatic. I'd put him into bed for his afternoon nap, and one little cry, my father would go, no, I'll get him. Dad, don't. To leave him alone, he'll go back to sleep.
So you're close to both your parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
More close to my father than my mother, but my father, my father died, you know, young, a doctor's accident, believe it or not. He had lung cancer. They were all heavy smokers then, you know, and he had lung cancer, and went and had a lung removed. I remember I was in Florida then with Jack doing we had a nightclub act that we toured with, and she called me. She said he was terrified of hospitals, terrified. And I talked to him. I said, Dad, you got to go. You got to do this. You'll be fine then. So he did, and he went in and had the lung removed. And what happened was the doctor that did the surgery was a major surgeon. Had to go to another hospital to do other things. So he put him in charge of like an intern, you know, for the after. And my mother was in the room with him, and the intern came in to examine him, and my mother said to the intern, he looks a little bluish, you know, and the intern, he said, no, he's fine, he's just fine. Well, the other lung was filling up, and he drowned.
How old was he?
52.
Oh my God.
52.
That is tragic.
Yeah, 52. Anyway.
But at least he got to meet your kids.
Only Sean.
Only Sean.
Firstborn. And then my mother, who never drank anything in her life, I mean, you know, the Jones family drank, but it's mostly beer, and never did, for some strange reason, started to drink. You know, it became, she was devastated, started to drink, and she met a man who was a bigger drinker than anybody I ever knew, and they married. He had money, you know, more or less, and they moved to Florida, and he had a motel that he ran there. Moved to Florida. Well, she started drinking nonstop, and it killed her. I mean, she died at 62, and it was, you know, it was everything in her body was just leaving. And when I went down there with my 2 aunts, her sisters, to sort of clean up and do everything, I found bottles everywhere, in drawers, under the bed, you know. And she had never had a drop of anything, you know, before that. So.
How did that affect you?
Well, I was, you know, I lost both my parents relatively young, you know, so. And, you know, I was I was devastated that they didn't live longer because, you know, and they were thrilled. The only thing that I was happy about is they did get to see my success in the business,
Yes.
and they were thrilled. You know, they were just thrilled with what happened with me, and
Very
so forth.
unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Very unexpected.
Because you weren't living in LA,
So they
being
were-
groomed
yeah.
at the studios. It was-
That's right, and they were
Yeah.
thrilled. And I remember they came out to Hollywood, and they were thrilled that I was living in a little apartment in Westwood. And when the premiere of Oklahoma, they had a wagon, you know, that drove up to the theater. I think it was the Pantages. And my father was in the wagon, driving
Aw.
the wagon, and my mother was there, you know, so it was really great.